Welcome to Unemployed and Afraid, a podcast that explores the glorious mess of building your own business with the people doing it. I'm your host and fellow business builder, Kim Curtin. Thank you for being here. Let's get into some good, honest, small business chat. This is the first interview episode of Unemployed and Afraid for a brand new year. And I got to tell you, it is giving big, fresh start energy. But if you're listening to this later in the year, don't worry, because we love some evergreen content. It'll still be fresh start energy. And that's important because as business builders, we know that often we need to find this new energy on a random Wednesday afternoon in the middle of May. Anyway, Kerryn is the founder behind the most epic shoe brand called Radical Yes, which I'll tell you all about in a sec. And in the sharing of her story, you're going to get exactly what you need as a brave human building a business. In it, we cover why to enjoy that pre-launch period, the flow of following a nudge, the reality that so many business owners just wouldn't do it again, the financial sticking point of having to go all in without capital or an investor, the benefits of being customer-facing, managing rapid growth, the difference between confidence and self-belief, and a healthy touch of woo-woo. See, it really does have everything. It also has a siren in the background at one point. So don't worry, the police aren't following you. I just don't quite have the editing skills to remove it without messing up the sound of our voices. So let's get you into it. I'm here with Kerryn Moscicki. How did I do?
Very good. I think that's the best yet.
Founder of Melbourne-based footwear and accessories brand Radical Yes, with a big exclamation point after yes. That is literally and metaphorically, as I absolutely love this brand. Established in 2013, Radical Yes maintains a unique voice in the Australian footwear landscape. It's known for its authentic and customer-centric approach, creating highly focused collections that are delivered with an emphasis on purpose and storytelling. It's built around their flat shoe liberation ethos, something I wish I was aware of back in my corporate media sales era, where my feet were permanently in horrible heels and still hurting from it. The brand creates forward and conscious products designed to speak to the IRL needs of modern women. Radical Yes are both online and in physical retail, with the brand's North Melbourne boutique called The Fitting Salon, a unique experience-based retail space that acts as the heart of the brand's creative community. Regarded as an authority in fashion e-commerce brand building, Kerryn has shared her insights for titles including Broadsheet, the Sydney Morning Herald, Business News Australia, and Fashion Journal. And in 2016, the brand won the Zero Cloud Street project that saw Radical Yes being hosted for a week in a glass cube pop-up shop in Brisbane's Queen Street Mall, generating mainstream TV news coverage. Kerryn is building a killer business and is passionate about setting an example of what can be achieved as an independent female fashion entrepreneur in today's chaotic digital marketplace, which means I'm sure she has loads to share with us about her adventures so far. Kerryn, welcome to Unemployed and Afraid.
Thank you so much, Kim. Thank you for having me.
As I said, the second I found your brand, I was immediately in love. The energy, it's really high energy, comes through all of your brand assets and like gorgeous flat shoes. Like what a vibe. And it's very grateful that it exists in this world. But before we get into all things Radical Yes, let me know, I guess, a little bit more about you, the human behind the business. How would your best friend describe you?
As energetic, probably. High energy lady. Probably do too many things at once. Positive. I think most people describe me as a very positive person. And I think probably loyal and pretty devoted to my family and my children and my business.
Positivity, that little character trait that gets us through some of the most hideous of moments that we encounter in the building of a business. Very, very important. But before you were building Radical Yes, what was happening for you? What were you up to?
So I was working as a product developer for many years. I worked for a number of large businesses. I worked for wholesalers that worked with large-scale high street retailers, essentially. So I was designing sunglasses for Australia's biggest sunglass manufacturer, actually wholesaler, because they manufacture in wholesale. And then I eventually ended up working in the footwear industry. So I was sort of taken on a bit of a journey with someone who had been working at the sunglass company, and she had started her own business in footwear. And this was in sort of 2008, in the mid 2000s, when manufacturing in China really exploded, and it was just very accessible all of a sudden for people to be able to work closely with factories in roles like I had as a product developer. There was sort of a lot less design going on and a lot more development, if that makes sense. So I guess because I'd studied business, I didn't study fashion. So I was sort of skirting in through the back way, I reckon, of working in product, because I've always loved product, very much a product person, but wasn't classically trained, as it were, in design. So I did that for many years. I did that between the sunglasses and the footwear, I did 9 years of product development. And during that time, I did a lot of travel. I traveled for work. We'd go on sourcing trips all around the world, and then we'd take the samples into China and do development there. And after I had my first child, I just found actually, it was even leading up to having my son, I was just finding that the rate of work, the pace of work and just the volume was really starting to do my head in, to put a simple point on it. So I took a year off after I'd had my son and took some time to reflect and became a yoga teacher, as you do. And so it was during that time when I'd taken a year off and I was really literally contemplating my navel and doing my practice and thinking about what had attracted me to the industry in the first place. And I thought, I've got to find a way to do this better, because I actually really love the fashion industry and I love product and I do love design, but there had to be a better way to do it than what I was doing. And so that sort of partly inspired Radical Yes. And that was where the name came from as well. It was like, let's do this differently.
I laughed immediately as soon as you said to myself, as you do, about yoga teaching, yoga teacher training. It's exactly what I did.
Everyone does. It's all right. It's a rite of passage. It's a search, right? We're all searching. We're all figuring it out, especially for people that have worked at desks for many years. And then it's like, I need to move my body. I need to be present in my body. I have sat here like a brain and I need to feel more. And so there's that. And we don't, as soon as you win in a corporate work situation, suddenly there is this real detachment that goes on between your body and your mind. And yeah, I mean, I know it is a little bit predictable, but I also think it's great that people are going on that journey of self-exploration, because I think it's making us more conscious beings. So I think it's a good thing, even if it is predictable.
Oh, I absolutely agree. It's the best thing I ever did for myself. I had exactly the same experience after a very long time in media and very desk bound and very heady, constantly thinking and problem solving and communicating. And, I was so disconnected from my body and, could really, really feel that, but almost didn't have the language to say that I was disconnected from my body at that stage. And It was only through the process of yoga teacher training, I was like, oh, and all the public crying that happens when you do it.
I know, it's quite the onion layer, isn't it? You're shedding a few layers there. Yeah, it's good.
100%.
Yeah, I loved it. I did love it. And I still practice to this day, and I still do a lot of workshops and learnings, and it's a big part of my life, definitely.
It's just such an incredible gift. So I absolutely love that. And I think, maybe that's something that we could share with more business owners we speak to. If you're lost, you don't know what you're going to do right now, just go do yoga teacher training for a bit. You'll figure it out after that. Just worry about yourself.
It does help. It does. Yeah. Well, true self. That's what I always say and the business is a path to true self. I mean, at business, especially when you start your own business, it is that. It is all about personal development. You have to be ready to go on a trip of personal development, because it's going to test all your resolve, and you have to be very brave and courageous. And so you have to have the tools in your kit to find that courage. Yoga's good for that.
Absolutely. You couldn't have said it any better. It is just so very true. That is absolutely it and a bit. And it's the thing that we miss quite often, because we get caught up in that really exciting period when we're developing a brand and a product or a service offering, and it's very fun, it's very shiny, it's names, it's colors, it's branding, it's visuals, it's all of those things. And then, yes, there is always the moment where it comes back to yourself and the personal growth challenges that we go through. And I really want to get into some of that with you. But before we do, I want to get to that seed of Radical Yes. So, the idea comes to you. You think, yep, I'm going to explore this. What were the first few months of getting it going like for you? What took your attention and what surprised you about the challenges through that period?
What took my attention was the product and trying to nail what we were trying to say with the product. And also the branding, of course. My husband's my business partner, and he's also a graphic designer, and I think very skilled graphic designer in my opinion. And he hand drew the logo for me, and we spent a lot of time. The logo's really special to me, actually. We were just talking about it this morning, but he hand drew it, and so we did spend a lot of time finessing it and fixing it. And yeah, so the early days were very much about the product. Before you've sold anything and before the market's digested at all, you've got, just your friends knowing what you're doing. It just felt like a really special time, looking back, before you've had to bring anything to market and before you've been digested by the market. It's actually great. It's once you launch that it gets it can be a little more intense, I guess, but that's what you're signing up for, right?
Intensity is definitely the name of the game. How did you go to market? How did you launch, and what were some of the tactics you employed?
It's a good story, actually, because originally, I'd come from a wholesale background, and this was in 2012. The first range of samples was ready in 2012, and I just took it to a couple of little retailers that I knew just on a whim. I think the thing with the brand was it was quite organic in that I was still doing my teacher training. I'd had a factory come to me and say, because I was never going to start a business on my own, especially not a footwear business. Like, I had no capital. I had a credit card with $2,000 on it when we started. It was a bit of a pipe dream to think that we could get a business up and running. But the factory that supported us in the beginning said to me, you design the shoes, because we really had a great working relationship. And he said, you design the shoes, I'll manufacture them, whatever quantity you want. I'll make you 5, I'll make you 20, I'll make you 100, whatever. You just try and take it to market and go and sell it. So my idea was originally to wholesale it. And I tried a couple of boutiques, and then I kind of got the heebie-jeebies of like bankrolling small boutiques, that are they going to pay and all that. And then Leo, my husband and my business partner, had been noodling around at the same time with a big cartel site, like this pre-Shopify. And actually, I think Shopify was around, but it was for bigger brands, So we had a big cartel to begin, and it had 5 shoes on there that we were just mucked around, and we were just really, honestly, it was so organic. And we put them up on the big cartel, and weirdly we sold one. And I didn't know who we sold it to. I didn't know. At first I thought it was a friend. I'm like, I don't know who this is. It's actually someone in the market has bought these shoes. And that just ignited me. That was like, well, that's a business. And from that point on, I just became really fascinated with how could we do direct to consumer. And this was 2012, 2013. It was a good time to be exploring. There was not anywhere near as many brands. So my mind was kind of made up that we could build a direct to consumer business and try and bypass the pain of wholesale.
I absolutely love that way that rolled out for you, that organicness. I think there is, you start with one thing and you're like, maybe this isn't quite it, but that energy to go, actually, I feel the passion here, I feel it building. That must have been incredibly exciting. Was there anything that was kicking around in your mind at that time, being like, oh, this risk in particular is scaring me?
Absolutely. I have 2 kids and a mortgage, and like I said, we didn't have any capital. We were using my credit card to do all of the things, and then just our own IP. I do kind of love that. We was pretty scrappy of just like whatever strengths we had between Leo and myself, which was, I was really good at managing vendor relationships and had good factory relationships, and Leo was really good with graphics and the back end, and both of us just scrapping around, noodling around the IT side of things, and just using what we had to build whatever we could. And look, I often wonder if I could go back in time, if I would do it again. And I don't know if I would, but that's not what your listeners want to hear. I shouldn't say that. No, I shouldn't say that. I would do it again, but maybe I'd approach things a bit differently. But hindsight's a beautiful thing, right? But yeah, so my highest value and also Leo's and really my family's is creativity and independence. So it was all about, we wanted to live an independent life, and we wanted to use our creativity to live an independent life. And so we just leaned into everything that we had in order to do that and build something from that.
It's incredible to hear those values, backed behind your business. And I actually love that you brought up that thought of, would I do it again? Maybe not. I'm not sure. Maybe. I actually think that's an incredibly important thing for us to say out loud. I think the exact same thing about like so much, played around with, ceramics and ended up becoming a ceramicist and selling homewares direct to consumer for a period of my, self-discovery in business. And I still love it. But if I'd had my time over again, like, I don't know if I ever would have gone down that route of trying to make a business out of it. I probably would have just
Totally.
recentered myself and stayed focused. And, I think there's just so, I don't think I've met someone who wouldn't do things a little bit differently with that benefit of hindsight, and might sometimes go, "Oh, I don't know if that's exactly what I would have done."
Well,
but here
it's
we
so
are.
true because my best friend has had her business for 20 years and she has an amazing graphic design studio. And she says the same thing. She's like, we literally talk about it a fair bit. Like, would you do it again? But I think it's also because you're coming from the perspective, for me personally, you're coming at it from 48-year-old me versus, when you're a bit younger, like 12 years younger, you've got less to lose. So you just give it a shot, maybe.
Maybe. Talk to me a little bit about like you said, the financial side of it. So, that commitment to family, to expenses, all of those things, and then the unknowns that come with the opportunity potential, but also what happens, how long is this going to go for? How did you balance keeping your personal financial and security in check to give you comfort to proceed with building?
Oh, look, I think I learnt everything I know about money through the business, and we went through a very tough time. The first 5 years were particularly tough. And, there was a period for about 3 years where we literally didn't pay ourselves. And I don't recommend it, but it was just the reality of what we'd signed up for because we had shop leases, we had staff that we needed to pay, and we just had to dig deep to get through it. So there was definitely a very tricky time. And I highly recommend to your listeners a man named Mike Mikhailovich who wrote a book called Profit First that they may or may not know. But we sort of found ourselves at about the 2-year mark where, it was the 2 or 3 year mark, we'd taken on staff, we'd taken on shops, we'd taken on a lot. And very quickly we were taking on, rebuilding our website. We kind of did that classic thing of doing everything at once and not pacing ourselves. And we did get into a bit of financial trouble, and that was pretty scary. So once you've had that experience, this is a big part of Hasten Slowly. It's like you learn that you need to really pace yourself in business, especially if you're like us and you didn't have a lot of capital and you don't want an investor. You've just got to go slow, and there's just no other way around it. For a business of our size as well, it's absolutely essential that every month is profitable. And we've had a couple of months this year where we weren't. And it's not that it necessarily impacts the cash flow straight away, especially now that we're 11 years in and yet we've built up equity for over a long time. But you can't go on for many months without delivering profit. And, it's really important to understand what profit does for a business, and that it's not like profit lands in your pocket and you go, unreal, there's my profit for the month and off I go with my salary. Like, that's not what it's really doing. It's just making sure that the business is liquid. And especially when you're buying stock and you're a stock-based business. So to answer your question in a roundabout way, I think the financials for our experience has been challenging, definitely because we were self-funded. The last few years, particularly since COVID, it's been a lot easier. But then this year it's been tough again, and I think every business is experiencing that. Costs are much higher, just like cost of living for households. Cost of living for businesses is also up, our cost of experience. And so you have to be really careful and you have to move very methodically. And sometimes that can be really challenging because you're like, well, my business is not growing and I'm not growing fast enough. And, and for us as well with our salaries, I mean, it's crazy. Like, we're still, we're like a 7-figure business, but we're still barely doing 6-figure salaries. So it's, but that's not why we're here. So we're here, like I said, our highest value is our creativity and personal development through the business. And that's where we've arrived.
Oh, I love that approach. I love everything you just shared. I hope, I probably will be through my editing phases, the listener will go back and give that a listen again, end to end. I think there's a lot of really powerful stuff in there. If you've been telling yourself that next year, the proverbial next year, is the year that you'll launch your podcast as part of a powerful content strategy to drive connection and impact for your business, let's make 2025 the actual year together. Every great show starts with a seed idea, a conversation you want to have, or a need you want to fulfill for a type of listener. But the shows that connect with an audience and bring you business results are the ones with staying power. They're backed with a strong strategic thinking custom to the specific nuances of the podcast medium, the one you're listening to right now, plus brand and content marketing knowledge. I can deliver this for you. It's me, of course, your host, Kim Curtin, and I can deliver this for you. If you've been connecting with me here on this show for more than a minute, you'll already know how passionate I am about podcasts and that I'm a skilled podcast strategist with over 15 years in media, creating strategic branded content concepts across broadcast and podcast. And I want to help you create a podcast concept that you are excited about and that will deliver for your business. I've opened access to a special one-on-one podcast strategy session with me for the first time ever to refine and stress test your idea, discuss what will work and what to watch out for, and how to measure your success and anything else that you might need to feel confident in this exciting podcast medium. It's 60 minutes, one-to-one, and $199. All you have to come prepared with is a seed idea, no matter how small, and together we'll form this into a show concept that you'll be proud to pursue. Interested? I'll make sure that the link is available for you in the About section of this podcast, or you can head straight to goodsideofthebed.com.au to check it out, or just come and find me on LinkedIn and I'll deliver it directly to your inbox. And I hope to see you there, and I hope to see you creating a podcast you're proud of for your business in 2025. If I could make an observation around some of what you've shared already, I hear about, the incredible graphic design and creative eye that your husband has. What a gift to have that in-house as well and in family.
Yeah, it's very special.
The product side that, you've brought so well, the product and that kind of design focus based on product, the business knowledge, but there's that kind of fundamental marketing piece that fits into a business like yours so nicely. Tell me about your journey with learning about marketing, what works, what doesn't work, what works for you, what you like, how to manage all of that side of it as well.
Yeah, well, for us, it's been about, I guess, as we've grown and developed, I find that including the customer in the marketing conversation has just been so powerful for us. And because I began I used to work in the store. I worked in the shop for the first 5 years at the brand. So I would have one-on-one conversations daily with the customers, like fitting the shoes, hearing about people's issues with their feet, and all of those genuine market feedback. That's what fed both the product development and the marketing. And the deeper that we went into that and the more that we listened to customer and reflected that in our conversations, in our, Instagram, EDMs, or those kinds of things, the more the brand resonated and the more we found our people. So I think listening and including customer in the conversation of marketing, especially for a fashion brand, is a little bit different because sometimes fashion brands do this thing where they're like, you can't sit here, like we're a bit cooler than you or something. And I've always had a bit of an issue with that. I'm a bit more inclusive, I think, in terms of, I like hearing people's opinions about the product, and I love hearing the wear experience. And when we're designing, we're always talking about what's the customer's end use? Where are they using this product? What's the practical use of this and the application of it? And so using that as well in the marketing has been really powerful because I think we make products that speak to people's real lives. So in that way, always coming back, what's this really for? And just explaining it authentically to customer has been probably one of the things that we're best known for from a marketing perspective. I think something else that I would share with customers, with your listeners, I should say, is the power of EDMs and not getting too caught up in social media, because social media is one place to have conversations with followers, but they're not your customers, they're your followers, and it's quite different, right? But EDMs, I would say probably 40 to 60% of our sales at various points along the way have come from email marketing. And Leo's spent a lot of time over the last 10 years perfecting and understanding email marketing. And the best thing about email marketing is it's own data and it's your own IP and it can't be taken away from you. Instagram could be turned off tomorrow, or TikTok. If you've built your business that way, it's fraught because you don't have your customer data that you can talk to them directly. So I guess that's one big tip that I always give people that are looking to start a business is spend more time on your email marketing and cultivating your database than you do on your social media. And that's something that we've done quite intentionally.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear you say that because I think it's been an edging for quite some time. I'm sure the listener will feel exactly the same way. This has just been edging, 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 where the experience of social media as a business owner, particularly if you're, really heavily active in the space, marketing, developing your business, doing all of the things as we all do, that it is, it's cost of engagement, its cost of leaning in for the individual is, really kind of challenging. I mean, I just put, yeah, it was either an episode or a something that I shared very recently with the listeners that you're kind of feeling something, you need to do something for your brand, you get into the space. And not only is it a challenging relationship to like convert from at times, but it's a challenging experience to be in the space unless you're hiring someone to completely manage the social media for you so you're not in there. When
Yeah.
you're in there, you've got comparison, you've got let me just scroll down and just have a little bit of a mind break for a minute, see what all these people that I'm following are doing. And then it's like, oh, I just saw something that's absolutely ruined my day. Okay, now I've got to, lift and get back into it again. And that's so challenging. So I think
Yeah.
this shift to like really truly owned media, social has such a part to play, particularly in getting to a position where you can get direct customer conversations going. But I'd love to hear you say that it is working so
Mm.
well for your business. Was there a tipping point for you? I mean, I think it's so generous to talk about the experience of having to like leverage debt and get into it and try things and for things to be challenging for quite some time. But was there a tipping point for you when you started to get traction, and what did that feel like, and what was the experience happening around you at that stage?
Yeah, well, it was that double-edged sword that everyone had of COVID really lifting us up, because with the rising tide, the little boats go up, right? So we had that experience where suddenly everyone was at home needing to go on ISO walks. And so flat shoes were really relevant. And we had a couple of really big wins during COVID where people like Annabelle Crabb put our shoes on her feed and it just went crazy. We got loads of customers from like various, I think there was just like a groundswell of support during that period for small business. And that was definitely a fundamental shift in our business in terms of our customer numbers and I guess our brand awareness as well. But it was also that weird time where it was also like we couldn't get any staff because it was tricky having people working for you, and it's just, and there was no one to work, it was that whole thing. So it was that, but that was definitely when the business kind of went through a tipping point, I suppose. And if you're looking at the P&L, it sort of went, from here to here kind of thing. And but it was a really like fast growth is very, in hindsight, it was really difficult to manage. And it was particularly, I would say I was also perimenopausal at the time. And so I know we're all talking about that a bit more now, but looking back, I just think it was a really wild and difficult ride for me. But that was the period of growth as well. So I had to do a lot of learning really quick about leadership and managing teams. And it was as well as homeschooling and having two kids at home.
How has that changed for you now? Because I find this really deeply interesting. I think, like you absolutely correctly identify there, it was a double-edged sword for so many businesses where there was so much growth opportunity through that phase. And now it's been, quite some time since the dust has proverbially settled and, we're kind of somewhat out a new side. How has that settled for you, and how are you establishing good growth and good maintenance, I guess, as well, to be able to capitalize on what was experienced?
Well, I think it comes back to that thing. And this was really where I learnt about going slowly. And even when the business is kind of on a wild ride and you're like trying to hang on, you just have to maintain agency at all time. And the task is to learn that, I guess, on a daily basis. Like when it starts to feel wild and out of control, just stop and just be like, I am in control of this situation. This is my business and I get to choose how many people I want to work with, how many people I'm willing to take responsibility for. And if it means that your orders go out slower, then so be it. And if it means that your customer service emails get answered a bit longer, then so be it. Because I don't know, my experience of rapid growth and expanding teams quickly it was quite stressful and it was very difficult. So I've kind of got a policy now that we only take on one person at a time, and they've got to settle for 6 months at least before we take on anyone else. And that's also because we're really protective of the team that we do have that are very loyal to us. And I guess it's just, yeah. So I think as far as maintenance goes, it's not planning for growth every year on year. Like planning for maintenance is also fine, especially when you've been going for a certain period of time. And like I said in the beginning, like our highest value is creativity in our family and our family life. So it's understanding how big you want something to grow as well, I think, and making sure you've got your arms around that, which in this market sounds like a bit of a privilege because, things aren't growing as fast as they were. But I think we're so measured in how we take risk now compared to previously.
Well, as you so rightly identify, it's, about coming back to the core values, as much as possible. It's like, of course, we have to make smart decisions to make sure that the finances are supported, that we have what we need in order to feel safe and secure to build what it is that we want to build. But then to also, know that, like, as long as those values are being ticked, you've got your baseline, you're being able to be creative and you're being able to be independent. Like, there's just, coming back to that when business can be so flighty and so in our heads and so reactive, it's about coming back to that grounding. That's definitely what I took away from that kind of share all round, is how important that becomes, whether it's through a growth stage or whether it's through, a bit of a lull stage, which so many people are experiencing, have experienced, will experience again. It's just like kind of how it goes. You got to have those values.
Yeah. Well, I have to think of that too, like, just to be a little bit woo-woo, but there's natural ebb and flow, right? There's waxing and waning, everything all the time. The ocean, the moon, everything waxes and wanes. And sometimes the tide's out, and sometimes the tide comes in. And we've got to ride all of the different paths that comes through. And I think, especially as I've gotten older, I've just gotten a lot more at peace with the fact that there's different times and so not every day is boom day. And that's and not every day is a bad day either. So it's like managing your expectations on how fast your business should grow, and also managing your expectations or what you're prepared to do to grow your business as well, I think. Yeah.
I love a little bit of woo. Do not worry. Yeah, we do exist in a bigger world, and sometimes what we can see. So a little, like, one woo is kind of like how I get around it. Like, we don't go too far, but just one woo is perfectly fine. You mentioned, of course, your team and developing a team. That I imagine was quite an experience, moving from developing and building into leading and, getting people behind a culture and an ethos with the business itself. What was that experience like for you, and what challenges did it bring?
Yeah, look, I think from the first person that we brought on, like I said, we didn't have any money when we began, and we weren't really paying ourselves. And then you bring people into the business and everyone's getting paid and you're not, and it's hard. But they're not what they've signed up for. But it's taken me many years to get to a point where I feel like I'm a good leader. I have definitely failed along the way in my leadership skills, especially when we were much smaller, and it's taken me like a lot of self-development and a lot of soul searching to think, like, what do I want to be as a leader, and how do I even feel about being a leader? And I think it's a confidence thing. I think when I first began the business, I just had no confidence in myself. And as a leader, that just gets reflected back in your leadership style. And I had a lot of anxiety, and I was very worried about money, and I'm taking all this risk, and so that comes through in your leadership, and it does make for a tricky working environment, I'm sure, for some of the people that have worked with us in the past. I'm sure they would agree. And so I have spent the last few years really working hard on becoming a better leader and committing to that. And you have to commit to that if you want to grow your business. Like, there's just no way that you can do it yourself. You will stay small and the challenge of that never ends, because now I'm at this next phase where I really need to take on another layer of leadership and letting go of, like, the design element of the product and getting a design manager. But I just have to wait until I am completely ready with my confidence level before I can do that. So that's going to take me at least another 3 or 4 months of personal development and growth. So I don't think you ever arrive. And I think there's a lot of that in business, that we have this expectation, and especially when we start a business. I think you go out going, well, in 3 months when this is all done, it'll be great. And it's just so not like that. Like, you just never arrive. And because you're always moving on to the next stage. And I mean, if I could have told myself where we are now, like when we began 10 years ago and what we're turning over, I would have just been like, what? But now I'm like, well, I know that that's actually, in order to do different things, there's certain growth that's going to have to happen. So you never arrive. And also, yeah, I think as a leader, you're always evolving. And it's something I really have done a lot of work on. And I think I've become much better in the last 12 months, especially at developing my team and listening to my team and being there for them in a way that maybe. And because also before I worked for myself, the most people I ever had working for me was two. I didn't ever manage a big team in my career. I was always kind of, I just had a very small team. So now I've got a team of 10. That's the biggest number of people I've ever managed.
There's something about time blindness for us as entrepreneurs, isn't there? Like we just are like, yeah, this will take 3 months, it'll take a year. Within a couple of years, even, I'll be profitable to a point where I can pay myself. Like we have all of these visions. I don't know if it's because we pick it up from other people, whether or not it's kind of the osmosis learning from business circles or big profiles that talk a lot about business development and things like that. But like, no matter what you put on it as a time piece, like just throw it in the bin. Like we have no idea how long these things are going to take, honestly.
I've got a really good methodology for that might help. And that is the Japanese practice of writing a 100-year business plan. And this kind of speaks to our hasten slowly philosophy as well. But time scaling things at least into a 25-year program will definitely help you on the tough days. Because it's like, for me as well, something I've said all along was you take a tractor and you turn it into a Ferrari. So you start with the minimum viable product and you keep building and you keep building and you accept this is all that I can afford. This is all that the business can afford. This is all that I can put into this right now. But one day, if I just keep doing it over and over again and being consistent and doing 180 episodes, Kim, it grows into something, right? So it's having patience. But I think that is challenging when money is involved because in the beginning, you're like, no one's going to sit down and go, great, I'm going to have no money for 5 years. This is going to be awesome. Like,
legit.
Yeah, it's hard. I think it's always like once we were in it, we're like, well, I think I even had a collection once called The Only Way Out is Through. And it was like, that was at about that point where it was like, we've got to just trade out of this because there's actually no other choice.
That should be on a t-shirt for all of us as business owners. Maybe I need to do a merch run at some stage of like random unemployed and afraid slogans that we need, because that is absolutely one of them. But it's so funny when you get the opportunity to time capture a little bit of how you feel. My solo episodes on this pod are like, when I look back over a 3-month period, I'm like, oh, wow, I've been going through it, haven't I? I'm like, oh, I'm having a real issue with social media at the moment. Like, I'm really mad at it. Like,
I know. And you realize how much you're disclosing. You're like, oh, did I really want to say that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's that real capsule. But no, it is so important because there's so much about this experience that although it's not, you can't necessarily find the one story that is exactly the thing that you relate to and you can see the exact blueprint of what you want to build as a business. But like when we take 1% from one person and 10% from another, we start to find our own way through it. And it really is only by, listening to plenty of stories and knowing that there's no right way to do things and giving it a crack. Like momentum is so underrated in business. Like it's just, the fruits of the labor. Like, right now, like I'm writing an episode right now just about, when you're building like a bit of a pile of greatness, right? It's like, you're one rock, like it's kind of almost like the 9 rock stack, you've got all of these rocks that you're putting out there, all these opportunities that you're putting out there and, all of these customer contacts, whatever it is, right? And nothing's landing, like nothing is landing. But it's that when 2 of those things land in 6 months' time, it's like it's the work that was done back 18 months ago that built onto that. And then that other piece of work you did right before it came through. And then all of a sudden, all of the rest of them kind of fall and there's this big, beautiful pile and it's all kind of happening. So yeah, we can't underestimate the power of momentum, but gosh, it takes trust. So much trust in the potential of what you can create if you give it enough time. How's your experience been with that kind of trust muscle and having to develop it?
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. One of my mentors once said to me, Kerryn, it takes 7 years for an orchid to flower, and for like an orchid to fruit. And it's like stayed with me for a long time. I think at about the 7-year mark, it does become like that momentum thing does kick in, which is just terrifying if you're listening to this and starting, but don't be scared. It does go really quick.
Legit, I'm about to come up to my 5th year anniversary and albeit I have changed my business approach a number of times already in this 5-year period, but I'm like, oh, fuck, I've got 2 more years.
Yeah, sorry. It really comes in at 7. No, there is something about 7 years though that is symbolic. But yeah, look, I think, just thinking what the question again we were saying is...
talking about trust.
A trust. Oh, yes. Wow. See, I've had a terrible challenge with that because I don't have very much self confidence, which probably sounds funny to some people, especially people that know our videos and things like that. Like, I don't have any problem getting up in front of the world and talking, but I don't think up until now I've had a true and honest belief in myself. It's taken me a long, long, long time to really, and I think it's something I'm still working on, like really believe in myself and my abilities and back myself, which sounds so weird when I've had a business for 11 years. But I think that a lot of women would relate to that imposter syndrome. I think it's a pretty standard experience. And so I guess trust builds from maturing in age. It's wonderful. Thank God that you do get a bit of wisdom as you get older. And it is a really great time when you can start to trust yourself a bit more. And I think that that's starting to come through in the business. And that's another reason that our business is really flourishing at the moment, because, and honestly, so much of it is on the founder's energy. I really believe. So that's what you've got to work on when you want to have a business. You have to work on yourself first. And you really, and I know everyone says do the work but it's like it's kind of true.
I mean, you're speaking my language, and I think you nailed it with the difference between confidence and guts and, ballsiness, whatever you want to call it, to go and do the thing, and then self-belief in the possibility of the fruits of that, getting out there and doing the thing. They are very, very different. I've definitely have had and am having my own journey with self-belief, and it is far, far different than confidence. I can show up here and chat on a
Yeah.
podcast for 15 days in a row for no problem, just won't stop. But, and show up in video and do all those things. Like, I can put myself out there and do scary things. But self-belief is such a deeper piece. And that is, hashtag do the work. Like, we've got to face that side of ourselves. And that's, it's kind of hard to look at sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's looking into the groundlessness, isn't it? Just, can you let go?
Absolutely. Well, yoga is, again, our key takeaway from this episode is yoga does help so much with that. But, it is so, so insightful to, with the stage of business that you're at, I think sometimes whether you're somebody who's just starting, got a seed of an idea, or at that, 13-year mark or 15 or 20, it's about, still learning. So it is so wonderful to hear how you're approaching your learning, your self-development, your growth, your ability to go again, and your ability to stick to your values. Like, I just think there's so much in this episode. I know that the listener is going to love taking away from it. I'm sure it's going to be one that gets listened to again and again. So how can we support you right back to say thank you to continue growing your business?
Oh, well, crumbs. I don't know, buy some shoes and a bag, have a good time. I don't know. Well, I suppose if you're in Melbourne, you can come and visit our shop or see us online and have a look at, our Instagram and see the stories that we're telling, and on YouTube as well. And yeah, just engage with the brand by all means. Like, we love new people coming to the brand, and we love it when people really understand that we are absolutely about creativity first and foremost. And so I guess that's, just engaging on a creative level.
You best believe I'll make it super easy for the listener to go and click the links and do all that sort of stuff if they're not in Melbourne. So you can check it all out. It's going to be in the show notes, links to all the things. Because, yeah, I think it's, especially hearing your story and then going and taking a look at the brand, like, there's just so much energy that runs through it, and so much of you that runs through it as well, now in hearing your story. So I'll make that super easy for you to start. It's in the show notes right now. Kerryn, thank you so much for spending this time with me today and sharing your story. It's been my pleasure.
Oh, Kim, it's been really fun. I really appreciate the opportunity. And I think it's such a good service that you're sharing this information with people to keep them inspired to start their own business. Because I think if you've got a spark in you where you want to go out and try something, you really should do it. I often say to people that ask me, would you start a brand? It's like, if you've got something in you that you want to express, you should go and do it, because then you won't die wondering. Life's short.
My worst nightmare is not seeing self-actualization or realizing potential.
Yeah, unrealized potential. Exactly. And so it's like, just keep trying. That's all.
An incredible takeaway, Kerryn. Thank you so much for spending this time with me.
Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you for listening to Unemployed and Afraid, the podcast for small business builders with your host, me, Kim Curtin. If you love it, you can say thanks with a star rating and a review. And of course, join the community on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Find us at Unemployed and Afraid wherever you're hanging out, and I'll see you there.